Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on UnitedWeDrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich. With me, as always, are Kevin Abbott, Tim Johnson. You can see our faces, some of you. Some of you.
Well, probably not many, but some of you.
Jim can, and probably Eric can. And that's about, I mean, more of you can. You just don't want to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do apologize in advance, as I always say, a face for radio and a voice for silent films. But at this point, I've noticed that even Spotify just automatically plays video. And if our voices can't be engaging, at least the facial expressions that Kevin makes when I say something stupid are worth it.
Or might look like a deer in headlights when you guys say something that I don't quite understand, but I'm trying to pretend like I do. I think.
Well, that's only because we do half the podcast in Spanish.
Is that a new thing now?
¿Cómo te llamo? Gavin? No.
So this is one thing that probably should not be being done on the air, but I'm looking at like the waves, and Mike, yours are so massive, and ours are so not. I'm turning up my volume just a little bit.
Yeah,
we'll see if that works out.
I'm turning mine down, and
I'm going to turn mine sideways.
Like, I have it all the way down, and it is still peaking like crazy.
Yeah. So if you're doing more than just watching us and you're listening to us, please send Mike a message that says, "Hey, Mike, quit shouting at us," or stand across the room before you talk.
Well, the thing is that I will still get to edit this before it goes out there, so I can try to make myself sound somewhat normal, and this conversation is just dumb and pointless. So
much like every conversation we ever have. So this is all tracking. This is a brave new world for us, and let's get right into it.
Kevin, what are you drinking tonight?
So I got really excited because I talked before on the show about how like Dogfish Head, Bell's, Sierra Nevada had all put out reissues of beers that they had killed for mass distribution. And I was saying, like, I really hope that they keep doing that. Bell's put out a 12-pack with Best Brown, which is a beer they released last year for the first time in a while nationally. A hazy IPA, which I guess they had for a while and they stopped producing, but the Smitten Golden Rye Ale. Are you guys familiar with that beer at all?
I am not.
No.
So it's a
little dandelion. Yeah. Or what daisy? What I don't know.
I'll be a daisy if you do. So this is a fantastic beer. I'd only ever had this once at the Eccentric Cafe in Kalamazoo. And I've never seen it down here in Florida. And I love this beer. It is really, really good. And I have some Best Brown as well. So I'm enjoying this. And I was thinking, man, rye beers. I remember when those were all the rage, and we talked about it with Ruthless Rye when Sierra Nevada reissued that. It's such a great malt. I know it's difficult to work with sometimes, but man, the flavor profile is so great on this beer.
Speaking of rye beers and Ruthless at that, this past weekend, going up to my mother-in-law's house, we picked up a 12-pack variety pack from Whole Foods from Sierra Nevada, all atomic or torpedo stuff. And there's a torpedo rye IPA.
Oh, I got to try that.
Yeah, and it was the first one that my wife grabbed. It was the first one that I grabbed, and it's fantastic.
So what are you guys drinking, Tim?
I am drinking what, according to the Brewers Association, was the 12th largest craft brewery in the country last year, which is Garage Beer, which I've had on the pod before.
Okay.
But it got, I don't know, I think close to 80 today. I wanted something light, easy, drinking. I had one on the patio earlier today. So, yeah, just thought I'd do something light, and it's kind of hitting the mood right now.
Speaking of the BA, as we're recording this, it might be over by now, but the World Beer Cup award ceremony was going on. It might still be going on as we speak, but it's just kind of funny that we're doing that right now. I am having Voodoo Ranger Sweet Ride IPA. This is a new one for them. This is Juicy IPA. This is a flavored IPA because it does say with natural flavors. I would compare this to a tuned down version of Juice Force. Like it has those kind of juicy flavors to it, and it is only 6.5% as opposed to 9.5%. So that's what I would go for with explaining this. So, it's right up my alley then because I do enjoy those beers. And then I have a couple cans of Sierra Pils for after that.
Nice. Before we get into the topic, because we have this fancy new video feed and people can actually see if they aren't familiar with this can of Smitten, Mike, as a designer, I love Bell's so much. Their beers are fantastic. I still think to this day they're all on point. Their labels and their images are so bad the font here. Like if my designer for my brewery came in with that font, I'd go, what is that? Comic Sans? What are you doing here?
It does look Comic Sans like.
And just like the branding across, some of them have been around for a long time, so there's like nostalgia for it. I think Expedition looks great. I love Two Hearted, the classic nature of it. But some of these that have been around for a long time, I'm like, man, how do you guys get away with that? Because I know it's because the beer's so good and they've been around for so long. But I can't imagine people seeing that on the shelf and go, man, that looks like something I really want to. I want to drink the beer that the can was designed by my fifth grade daughter. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel the same way about Russian Rivers labels. Like they are so pedestrian, and they do have Comic Sans on some of their labels, and it's even like some of their newer beers that they've put in cans or bottles. I'm like, that could be way better. But it's almost if them and Bell's they're just leaning into it at this point, and they know it, and they're like, let's just own it.
Let's just see how far we can get with it.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, the World Beer Cup's going on as we're recording this. So that means CBC has just wrapped up. This edition took place in Philly, and I did not experience a single ounce of FOMO about this. And we have talked about CBC on the show before and how it just like it was fun at the time, and it's just kind of run its course through our lives. And but some huge news came out of CBC, and that was that Stone Brewing has been acquired by Duvel USA, and specifically, I guess, in that Firestone Walker.
Wait, you're telling me Keystone Brewing was acquired? I get those two confused all the time.
Yes. So now Keith Stone will be drinking some 805 on a future commercial.
I was just thinking about that whole Keystone Stone lawsuit from a few years back, and boy, the brand confusion that I'm sure happened. And now there's a Firestone Stone confusion. If Firestone Walker does not make a beer called Firestone with the stone font in it, then they're completely missing out.
Firestone Best Buy. So, and this is actually the second acquisition that Firestone has made in the last like 3 weeks. They bought Trumer Pills, a brand that belonged to Gambrinus, who are the owners of Shiner, a couple weeks ago. So they bought that brand. I don't know if you guys have ever had them. It's big on the West Coast. It's a very, very good Pilsner. And they had a tap room in Berkeley, but they are not acquiring that, I think, in the deal for that. Whereas with Stone, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tim, they're acquiring the brand and 4 pubs, but none of the production facilities.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah.
Escondido and Richmond. Sapporo is going to keep Richmond and keep producing beer out of there, and then are going to look to sell the Escondido brewery.
Yes.
This is crazy, especially considering Stone was just purchased by Sapporo in 2022.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
Like, and Sapporo has divested now. They closed Anchor and sold the assets off to that. They still haven't reopened, and now have sold off Stone, their other major U.S. acquisition. And it just seems like Firestone's just picking up some pieces for some brands that mean a lot in California. What were your initial thoughts on this, Kevin?
The first thing I think about here is how unsuccessful, at least the perception is, unsuccessful these craft brands have been in macro portfolios. And it just seems like consistently these national brands of American craft beers, are distributed in 38 states or whatever it is, and they used to be on every single draft line. And I'm not saying it changed because they got purchased by Sapporo. I don't think it's changed. Funky Buddha's fortunes changed because, in a negative way, they got purchased by Constellation or whatever other brands you want to talk about. But it does not seem that anyone on that macro scale, on those international brewery conglomerates, really knows what to do with these brands when they buy them. And it might just be the natural downturn of the market and bad timing. But every time this happens, somebody who thought that they would open a 20-barrel brew house in 10,000 square feet and sell to Budweiser one day just sheds one more tear, because they just know that that's just not going to happen. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how much it really matters. I don't know how much it matters to like the craft perception of it all. I just think that some of these legacy brands like Stone will continue to kind of fall from grace and become back what they really were in the first place, which is, like you just said, Mike, just kind of local, regional, state, popular brands. And if it can be produced out of a brewery that's already doing volume and doesn't need it to be the thing that drives their entire economy, then good for them. That seems to be a good play for Firestone.
One of the first things that I thought of when I heard this news was, and especially that they're going to Firestone's going to take on the brand and brew them out of their facilities, was they have spare space to make a big brand like Stone. What did you think about that, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been no secret that a lot of these places have had excess capacity for the last 6 years.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of them have been looking to kind of fill those. I think when you saw some of the larger companies buying some of these larger brands, it was to actually probably acquire more production than it was to necessarily utilize the brand. And you've seen a lot of these other places that potentially overbuilt or appropriately built for the time, but with the market changing as it has and the consolidation that has happened. It does not surprise me that most of these breweries had excess capacity, including
you playing with marbles over there? What are you doing?
Yep.
I mean, I don't think it did not surprise me to know that they had capacity to be able to take this on. 'Cause, I mean, they're going to be brewing some of this out of Kansas City, from what I understand as well. This isn't all going to be happening out of California.
Forgot about the whole Boulevard can play a role in this too.
Yeah, exactly. For me, maybe from a capacity standpoint, is just because you don't have a production facility at all east of the Mississippi. That was maybe the only thing from a capacity standpoint that seemed a little weird to me. I mean, we have a hard enough time getting in code Firestone Walker here in Minnesota. Uh, they haven't been in this market for that long. I don't know, maybe 5 years, 4 years, but almost immediately we ran into old beer. So it seems to me, it was like the fact that they didn't include Richmond in the deal does not surprise me. That Sapporo wanted to keep Richmond, but it just seemed to me that if you were going to buy a brand like this because you had capacity, I guess you're not looking to expand your capacity, but how do you not take advantage of the ability to get some sort of production east of the Mississippi?
One of the things that I guess, and some of this is an assumption on my part, right? I don't know when someone's making these deals for hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, and they are these massive brands selling beer on several continents, I don't know what all goes into this equation. But from a small business perspective, and what I can wrap my brain around, is that when these brands were purchased, the idea was to put them everywhere. They were going to use their distribution networks. They were going to go into more grocery. They were going to say, okay, where's the space inside of Walmart's? It's a national company. Where's the space inside Target? Where's the space inside Walgreens that we can gobble up because we're already doing business in here? And I'm sure there are some success stories there. Maybe you guys can point one out, but it seems like it's failed over and over and over again. Whereas these footprints, like, they're continuing to do the business they're in, but they're losing a lot of ground. I mean, brands like Stone, for instance, have lost ground everywhere in Florida, right? They're not just on draft, which is the most obvious ones, but you find less and less of their beer in more and more places. And so the model was try to grow them bigger. Well, it didn't work, right? So it seems that if you're a brewery like Tim, you said, like, that has excess capacity, can I really create 2 or 3 new brands inside Firestone Walker or inside Boulevard that are going to immediately get shelf space that's already there? No, but I can take on brands that currently have shelf space, that are currently working, and even if I maintain the status quo, I'm doing well. I have a bigger market share, and I can show that to my investors and growth in sales, and that's a positive. And even if that tails off over time, it's a short-term play if the price wasn't too steep. That's kind of how I look at the strategy from, like, Sapporo versus the strategy of Firestone Walker right now, just shooting from the hip.
I guess I would challenge it that was the plan with Sapporo and Stone in the first place. I think Sapporo was already trying to take on a national player, not necessarily take this small and make. I mean, remember, Stone went through their whole debacle with Berlin, like, what was that, 6-7 years ago?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. This is already a brand that even attempted to go international. I don't think the sale to Sapporo had anything more with wanting this brand to get larger. Sapporo necessarily say we can take this smaller player and make it bigger. I think it was more just trying to be able to take advantage of already a larger player, and then realizing the shifts in the market are what made them go ahead and get rid of this and say, hey, we got our excess brewing capacity out of this. Now we have this great production facility in Richmond that we can produce more of our higher margin beer.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah, to me this was more a lot. This was not, to me. I don't look at Sapporo looking at this as, hey, we tried to make Stone bigger and we failed, so we're dumping it. To me, I see it as hey, we bought this national brand, gave us more production facility, gave us more space. Now that brand is no longer profitable. Let's go ahead and spin that off and take advantage of these assets. They didn't need Escondido. They do need Richmond. Richmond was not included in the deal because they like Richmond and they want to take over that Richmond space to produce Sapporo there. So I think some of those before, yeah, when like Breckenridge and 10 Barrel and that group went to Budweiser, and now they're out, and they're are they Tilray brands? Yeah. Now, like, that whole group, when that went down, I think that was Budweiser trying to expand or take these things large or whatever, and they got out. I think the Sapporo acquisition of Stone was maybe done in a different vein, but I do see see your point. I think when you have that capacity and you have an ability to take on some of these other things that are established brands. Now, I agree, Stone just does not have the placement that it used to, but what national brand does? There's like 3 national brands that do, really.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I sent you guys a picture of Sierra Nevada Celebration on tap still in April here in Minnesota. So even the biggest and the best doesn't necessarily mean it's moving.
I think I read something the to go against your what national brand is doing well. I think it was something that was like 1 out of every $8 spent on craft beer goes to New Belgium.
Yeah, I just say there's a
Like
handful.
they might be one of the only ones who is doing.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and that one doesn't surprise me. And that is the exception to the rule, certainly. But I mean, like I said, garage beer wasn't even a thing a couple years ago. Now they're the 12th largest craft brewery in the country, and they're doing it based off of Garage Light and Garage Lime,
Yeah.
right? And that's just the Kelsey brothers spinning off from an existing brewery and creating their own thing. The way National works as a player is you got Sierra Nevada, New Belgium, some of these already established ones. B, you've got these new ones that 10 years ago wouldn't have been considered craft by the BA. And you've got 3, you've got now all these brands like Tilray that are all of a sudden really big because they bought up a whole bunch of smaller ones, and you're seeing a lot more consolidation.
So, yeah, Stone was predominantly bought by Sapporo for tank space to make Sapporo beers.
Yeah.
Like, because they, for some reason, didn't know that they couldn't make their beer at Anchor before they bought Anchor. Like that was a whole thing that kind of came up during the whole Anchor debacle. But yeah, it's like they decided, all right, we got what we wanted. We have a brewery, a functioning production brewery. I mean, technically 2 that can make the beer that we want. We can get rid of one of these, and we can cut our losses on a brand that isn't doing well. But
Well, what I was going to say is that no, so you guys both make very good points, and as I said when I was kind of just spitballing, this is from my very limited understanding of the business because I work in a very small corner of it. But as a bigger company, you're looking at things in a much different way. You're looking at assets differently. You're looking at leveraging assets that aren't just purely, financial dollars in and out. And that makes perfect sense. It also makes perfect sense because from what I've seen and heard through people I know in the industry, Sapporo is one of the few brands that's actually doing really well as far as like their growth, at least in like the Florida market. So out of all the brands that are doing well and needs to do more production, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a lot of Heineken buying Lagunitas. Again, they didn't buy that to take this regional brewery and make them huge. They did it to take advantage of an already established national brand to be able to now what went down in Chicago with that whole mess is a whole other thing. But I think about 6-7 years ago, large brands and their acquisition strategy completely changed, and so now the ones that are really trying to do it to either take them larger or to just build up a portfolio are really more of those private equity groups or those groups like Tilray that are trying to do it on the aggregate by having a stable of brands. It's just the further kind of consolidation that's happening. And yeah, Sapporo is doing really well. They're one of the major imports that have made major motion. A lot of the Japanese imports have done really well as of late. We saw a few years ago, Modelo was the number 1 beer in the country, right? Like it seems to be kind of going in waves that the international brands aren't necessarily what we would classically think of as import per se, but more just international light lager type of strategy has changed a bit.
Well, when so many of those beers taste so similar to each other, it's like, oh, here this new thing that I've been around for 30 years that I just figured out is popular now. And then it's like, oh man, this is all I drink. And then, you realize it tastes like everything else. So the next time a new international brand or a new import on the local beer list comes up, people start to get kind of into those.
Thinking about that, like I remember, I think it was Beer Wars, the movie. They blind tasted people on Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Light. I would love to do that with Sapporo, Kirin, and Asahi, and see if people could really tell the difference between them. Like, 'cause I'll be honest, I'll swear that I like Asahi most out of those three brands, but if you probably put them all next to one another and blind tasted me, I bet that I would suck at that.
A lot of people suck at blind tastings.
Yeah.
Sommeliers sometimes suck at blind tastings of wine. I mean, it's really easy to screw with people's perceptions. We did some blind tastings at Barrel of Monks with our beers, and none of us did well. And we all think we know our beers really, really well. We drink them all.
Ones you did on social media?
Yeah.
Yeah,
some of them were really bad. I mean, I did one, and I got, first of all, I will say this to my dying day. Bill messed me up by using beers that I said use our cores, and he didn't use our cores, and that made me upset because I was in my head thinking this has to be Wizard and Havana, whatever. Anyway, that's just sour grapes, but I still butchered it like badly. And these are beers that I drink all the time. So no, I think it's well established that when I say these beers taste the same, they're so similar that it really is about the marketing and the perception and what commercials are running this time. I mean, when the most interesting man in the world was telling you to drink Dos Equis, I felt like I saw Dos Equis freaking everywhere. And I haven't seen someone drinking a Dos Equis in 10 years, right? It just, when sometimes they catch lightning in a bottle and they ride that wave and people are like, oh my God, this is the only beer I'm ever going to drink again. And then they just go back to Miller Lite, at some point.
Here's the hottest take I'm gonna have on that, particularly the growth in the international lager segment. It's sales driven, not marketing driven. And you might say, how do you tease those two apart? I'm saying the more you get placement of Sapporo over Kirin in every Japanese restaurant in a metropolitan area, they're doing. People that are drinking Kirin or Sapporo aren't going to their Japanese restaurant requesting one over the other. They're drinking whatever that restaurant has on tap. I really think this becomes sales driven more than marketing driven. If you can win out by just getting sheer placements of Sapporo everywhere, you're winning out. And it's not you don't. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw, if I've ever seen a Sapporo commercial.
I was just gonna say you don't see commercials for any
100%.
of the major Japanese brands.
Yeah,
but you do see Euro brands. You do see Mexican brands.
Yeah, but I mean, I haven't even seen a Stella commercial in forever. I think with those in particular, it more just has to be like, if you get the right accounts or you sell the keg at the right, you win on price. Because a lot of those restaurants, any restaurant really, their tap list is driven as much by what price can you give me on kegs more than anything else. Like, it used to be draft optimization. I need to have this kind of beer and this style of beer and this many locals and this many regionals and this many imports. And now it's literally, what can I get for the cheapest price that satisfies something? But, I joked yesterday, right, that I saw a woman in a fuck racism t-shirt pouring a Founders, right? Like, they don't even care if their beer's aligned to anything else. It's literally just, these are the kegs I have on tap because, maybe I know I need a hazy and maybe I need a pale and I need a light lager. But other than that, it's, what am I going to get the best deal on anymore, because of where margins have hit in this industry is so bad. Bars and restaurants are hurting and winning on price. That's the other reason why, this conglomeration makes sense, is when you can do things at scale. That's as good as any commercial you could ever air.
So another thing that I thought with this acquisition and factoring in the Trumer purchase is like, what if Firestone is looking to really just be the kings of California? Like, because Trumer was essentially a California brand. Like it's Euro in roots, but taproom and facility in Berkeley. Stone is Southern California, sweethearts of the craft beer industry from years ago. Do you see them scaling back distro on Stone, like pulling out of certain states and focusing more heavily on California and maybe a handful of places that do still well with that brand?
I mean, I can see that as a strategy. I mean, I when we were talking about before about just having that shelf base already built in South Florida, right? If you go to Total Wine and More, you're going to see one Stone beer, I think, the last time in the cooler in the Boca Raton location, and 2 or 3 brands on the craft shelves. That's there. It's already built in. It's now how long has that beer been there? Is if I grab a 6-pack or a 4-pack or whatever it is off the bottom of the shelf, has it been there for 8 months? I don't know. I haven't done that experiment recently, but it's easy to potentially maintain the momentum that you have, but have that as a fallback of saying that we don't necessarily need to do that. We just want to be able to kind of bring these things home and do really, really well where we already do really, really well, and not put a lot of resources into growing that market. I mean, I can see it being more of a kind of a maintain thing, but also you have to look at when you do this kind of consolidation, you don't have to have an extra sales rep. So if you are selling beer like Tim in your market, and you already have someone that you feel like you have to pay, a Firestone Walker rep, 1 per state or whatever it is, maybe it's 2 per state or 3. If you're still doing that model, and now all of a sudden you have other brands to sell, the efficiencies there are really strong. So maybe you do have the ability to grow it. I mean, what you guys talked about, I think, Mike, you might have mentioned it earlier, or maybe it was you, Tim, talking about how it's only a few breweries that are really doing well, and they came out, talking about New Belgium and Sierra Nevada. This is not all that different than how it felt 20 years ago in like grocery store spaces where there was a couple craft brands doing well, and that was pretty much it. And then some locals kind of spattered in there that were slowly getting into that market. If we're going back to that model.
Did you say 20 years ago? Like, I just like
you're just feeling old.
Yeah.
But no,
holy shit.
2005. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought you were calling me out, and I was like, no, my math checks out here.
No,
at first I was.
Okay.
But then I realized after I said that, I'm like, oh, it has been. Like I've been in this industry now almost, or not even, I guess I'm technically not in the industry, but I was in the industry for almost 15 years, and like was heavily involved in it for almost 5 before that, like with blogging and all of that. But holy shit, yeah.
It's an interesting point about sales, right? I think one of the things that people get frustrated about when they enter a distribution relationship and rely so heavily on the salespeople at a distributor is that the distributor is selling a portfolio of brands. Now you're just taking that power out of the distributor's hands by amassing your portfolio yourself, right? And so, like, I was looking at so just last week, the Brewers Association put out their annual numbers, right? And if you look at top 50 brewing companies, number 4 is Tilray Beer Brands, right? Technically a cannabis company, is the 4th largest craft brewing company. 5th is Duvel. Gambrinus 7th, Monster 9th, 11th is Artisanal Brewing Ventures. Like these all of the big names now, or the big beer companies now aren't single brand. Sure, number 1 is still Yuengling, and number 2 is still Sierra Nevada. But even number 3, Boston Beer, that's a portfolio.
Sierra Nevada moved up to number 2. They surpassed Boston Beer this year.
Yeah, but
Boston Beer is one of those, though.
Yeah, my point is the top 15 is littered with not single brand driven companies, right? Like the way we've made the shift in all of this is these companies really are the conglomerates that are doing well, and even the ones that sound like they're not, like, Map Brewing. Well, Map Brewing is brewing a lot of other stuff too, right?
Big contractor.
Yeah, and so Gambrinus, Rheingeist, a lot of these are doing a lot of these other things. So you're not seeing these single brand companies being the big players. It really is about that conglomerate approach. And
Deschutes is Costco Brewing Company.
yeah. So you do have that, and so it is interesting. Now, Kevin, to your earlier question about Stone, maybe, or Mike, I guess your question, does Stone turn more into, does Firestone pull back on Stone and pull back on the markets? I think so. One thing I found here locally, and I've seen this even when I have traveled to a few other cities, is I don't see Stone in liquor stores, but I do see it more on tap, right? Like, I took my daughter to Dave and Buster's, and Stone is on tap there. And it's not because it's local or anything like that. It's because they got really good tap placement. I think what you're seeing with some of these brands, and I think Firestone can continue it, is worry less about the off-prem space, worry more about the on-prem space with some of these things. I think there's a lot of both small, medium, and even the large breweries have learned that off-prem really isn't the play right now. On-prem, even though we say people are going out less, they're going out less. I think the cost constraints in packaging, I think the continued fight over shelf space, I think just the downturn in general, I think on-prem is still a better play than off-prem. And I think that's where a brand like Stone plays best, is not worrying about, ruination or bringing back Jocovesa in Bombers or any of that bullshit. I think it's about getting Stone IPA placement into as many bars as possible.
Yeah, it looks like they're a mandate on Dave and Buster's locations. I think they're also big. I don't know do you have yard houses up by you?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that the Stone has a few beers that are mandated on that, and they also make one or two of the house beers for Yard House. So, it's some of those corporate placements where they're mandated to be in every location is something that's could keep them around as a national player. But it made me think, will this be a thing where they pull them back a little bit to reestablish them as a California thing? Because that's kind of Firestone. Despite the Firestone is distributed in many states, their bread and butter is 805. And that is talking about California culture. It's a beer that they mainly distribute in the state and they're trying to be the brand of California. So maybe acquiring a couple other California brands is just a way to just take over that state.
I mean, it's an interesting point, right? So, technically Duvel bought this brand, but they specifically said that this will be a subsidiary of Firestone Walker, right?
Yeah,
a subsidiary.
A
subsidiary of one of their brands within their portfolio.
It's a subsidiary of a subsidiary.
Yeah. And so even though it will be produced, according to the press release, at the Boulevard facility in Kansas City at not a Firestone Walker, it is the brand of the assets and all of that will be managed. Because that's one thing that they've done really well with Ommegang and with Boulevard.
I forgot that they're part of that too. Yeah,
right. Is that they have allowed them to all kind of operate as they did. They're just taking advantage of all the excess capacity to be able to produce brands in all places and be able to get it distributed more. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Because the other thing, like you said, is they did buy the 4 brew pubs, right? And they aren't planning on closing those down. They didn't need Escondido from a production standpoint space. But they do want to maintain. I mean, Escondido wasn't ever really Stone's what people think of when they think of Stone, as far as their brew pub space, right? I mean, I think half the people probably think of San Diego more than anything else, right? Like those destination places that they were trying to create.
Yeah.
So
Tim, I really like and appreciate your take on the draft play, because for a decade it has been, the model of you kind of outgrow draft space, right? You're seeking grocery placements, and that's where your true scalability is. And yes, obviously there are still, Budweiser wants to be in every Applebee's, right? That's still part of their economy. But when it comes to craft specifically, and just overall, the money being made is really in package. And we saw this locally, and I know I often come back to my own personal experience, which is not necessarily has a lot to say about a deal like this that I can't really even fathom, right? I'm trying to wrap it around and think about what the intentionality might be in it. But we've seen, as breweries get bigger locally for us, Cigar City, Funky Buddha, they abandon draft space almost. And then the wave of local craft comes in and gobbles it up, because they don't want to be servicing small accounts. Now, what Mike is talking about and what you're talking about, Tim, you're talking about national chains, right? So those deals are made on a high level, and Barrel Amongst Brewing can't go to Yard House and say, mandate us in all your locations, because we only service the state of Florida, so I can sell beer to like 3, right? So obviously it's going to take a brand like Stone or Firestone or the Duvel portfolio to make that work. But if you are philosophically trying to reclaim that draft space for national craft beers, that's going to put a real pinch on people like me, because we've counted on those spaces being there. And as you're saying that, I'm resonating with this so much more, because we are seeing local chains, maybe 3, 4 in Florida, that we were crushing it with. I mean, 4 half barrels half barrel a week of single and Havana. Boom, 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 boom. And then they go, well, sorry, we now have to have a mandated Sierra, or we have to have a mandated, Budweiser or Miller product. And we're seeing that creep back in, and it's so cut into our draft sales. Our draft is so far down that it's ridiculous. Our package sales is way up. But as you guys know, you trade volume for volume there, and you're going to go into the poorhouse, right? You need to sell 10 times as much package of the draft that you lose. So I'm kind of coming to terms with that and seeing it in real time of what kind of your thought experiment was playing out.
Yeah, I mean, so like I mentioned the place where the bartenders were in the fuck racism, and she's pouring to Founders. Not a chain, completely local. It's the Ridgefield Dive Bar. It's basically a non-VFW VFW in a lot of ways, and their tap list had Fulton Only Blonde, which is like one of the most ubiquitous, safest locals. Summit EPA, one of the safest, most ubiquitous locals, and then it was Founders All Day. It was Lagunitas Hazy. It was Kona Big Wave. Kona's another one of those that got out of the whole Budweiser relationship and came out on a better end, and still has a lot of national placements, and still did a really good job, because their reps went in and said, hey, if I'm going to sell all the Applebee's in this city, let me get some like 3 or 4 strategic placements at not chain restaurants, and those two will drive each other. And that really has worked. So, when you see Kona, you see Lagunitas, you see Founders, you see some of these others there. This is a place that has breweries all around it, and the only 2 locals that it has on are the most ubiquitous, most generic, most whatever. I think a lot of even the smaller, because again, at the end of the day, I don't care how much people say, boy, I really wish you had some local craft. If I'm paying $20 more a keg for that local craft, I'm not doing it. I'm just not if I'm a bar manager. Like, like it's hard for a company your size to be able to compete when even on a smaller scale, I still have to be as cost conscious on that stuff. And so those brands that got national placement gives them just the scale to be able to now use cost as a way to get into some of those places that aren't national placement. Mike, you seem
Are you muted, Mike?
Yes, I was. I do have to correct something there about Kona. It's a very strange thing. Kona Big Wave is AB. They wholly own that brand.
Okay.
Now, Kona Brewing Company has become independent again. The brewery
Gotcha.
in Hawaii, they have their brewery, their brew pubs, their tap rooms are independent, and they make some of those old classic beers. But the ones that are made massively by AB are made by them and owned by them. And Big Wave is a brand that they own wholly. It's very strange how there's pieces of that company across two different companies, and one is independent and one is not. It's one of the most bizarre things. But just I had to throw that out there because it is very confusing, and I only maybe read about it like last year because I saw something about it and was like, how the fuck does that happen? But yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So still, then you do have a national player getting that on there. So my mistake. But still, again, that's a national player being able to get placement, not at Just Chains, because it has scale to be able to make things affordable as a whole.
One of the things to mention in that is that, and I'm seeing this also, and I think maybe this conversation is morphing into something a little bit different, which I know that we're usually comfortable with, but for a very long time, you have had this mandate that we have to have a certain amount of craft because like our customers are demanding it, and they were willing to spend a little bit extra because it was like saying that the arugula was hydroponic or locally sourced, right? There was an expectation of that customer, the kind of restaurant you went to, that they would need this craft segment. And I'm not saying that was all an illusion. I do think that was I think some of it was market driven, but I think it jumped the gun by like an order of magnitude. I think a lot of I think that there's a small amount of places that were really demanding that. And I think that a lot of other places, larger chains or bigger restaurants, kind of hopped on saying, well, this is the next new wave of things, so we need to be in here. And I think what really played out was that it just wasn't necessary. And the customer really did not want 4 different IPA options at their local burger chain. They just wanted an IPA, and whether it was High Lie, Lagunitas, or Two Hearted, they didn't really care. They just wanted a beer. And I think it's not just the money, which that's like the next step, right? So if no one really cares, then hence and therefore I'm going to get the cheapest option. And then it squeezes out all of us that are trying to compete in there. And that's one of the reasons why we've gotten squeezed out of a lot of those places. And the most important thing I can say to this is I can't blame you. Like if I was running just a restaurant, I'd be doing a very similar thing. Well, why would I not?
Yeah, well, and the reason why I say a lot that it is so I kind of went on a little rant on Blue Sky yesterday about how I can't believe in the year of our Lord 2026 we are still, the Brewers Association is still making independent and craft a talking point. And I think nothing highlights this more than Stone, right? So Stone, 4 years ago, no longer craft by their definition. Now, craft by their definition. and 90% of Stone drinkers had no idea.
Yeah.
Nothing
changed?
nothing for them changed, right? So Brewers Association released their annual numbers last week, and in their press release, they said craft beer market share went from 15.2 to 15.3, demonstrating the consumers care about independent breweries. And I was like, bullshit, because that can literally just be done definitionally by defining who is and isn't craft, by an acquisition who is and isn't craft, and none of that is the consumer driving that change, right? The analogy I gave is there are two counties in North Carolina that the borders were misdrawn because of a surveying error. Last year in North Carolina, they corrected that surveying error and redrew the borders, and a bunch of parcels of land changed place. Which county you live in? So I used to pay taxes in this county. Now I pay taxes in this county. I didn't move. I did not make that change. The change in the size of counties was not done by the residents of that county, right? The change in the market share for craft from 2024 to 2025, bullshit telling me that was a consumer driven thing. Bullshit that was a consumer driven thing. That all had to do with acquisitions, changes, definitional changes, all of that. That is 0.1% is a rounding error anyway.
yeah.
So literally from that, I mean, that was one thing I pointed out, right? Like looking at the numbers, because they published a total number of barrels that craft produced. They gave the percentage of market share. I can do the math. Just moving Stone back into craft will give you a 0.1% growth next year. It will give you a 0.1% growth. And again, they will spin this as consumers chose independent more this year. Bullshit. The Stone drinkers stayed Stone drinkers. Nothing about that changed, right? And the fact beer is losing ground to ready to drink cocktails, and we are spending too much time still thinking consumers care what independent and craft means, when crafty is fine. I don't care who makes my IPA if it's a good IPA and I want that IPA on tap, right? And so, yeah, I think we do understand that you do need to have an IPA on. You can't just have 7 macro light lagers on there. But the idea that it has to be local and it has to be independent and it has to be this and it has to be like all of these other things that we traditionally thought of as craft and put in the craft bucket or as defined by the Brewers Association. I've been beating the drum about how calling Boston beer craft, calling all of their small little satellite breweries branded as something else is independent when they're neither independently owned or operated or anything else. Like using these terms is meaningless, and craft beer and the Brewers Association have done as much of a disservice to themselves by focusing too much on that and believing too much of the hype and continuing to put out press releases saying this change in market share shows what consumers care about. Bullshit. That is the biggest leap you could make from those numbers, and it's sticking your head into the sand to the real problems, in my opinion.
Dave Infante, a great independent journalist who writes about beer, it was out at CBC, and for the wrap up at CBC, Bart Watson, the newish CEO for the BEA, was talking, and he kind of threw some shots out there at journalism, and Dave posted about this on Blue Sky about how like the journalists who write about beer are talking way too much doom and gloom, and there's not enough happy stories, and almost as if he's like trying to tell the journalists like, you need to write about more nice things in the industry. And he was like, I'm really having a hard time following what he is trying to tell me as a journalist. That is he trying to tell me that I need to do this job or else? Like, what?
So, but let's remember, before Bart Watson was the CEO of the Brewers Association, he was their chief economist.
Yes.
He was their chief economist. He was the guy writing all of these numbers and helping draft these press releases to spin the numbers to tell the story he wants told. I've met Bart once or twice. Seems like a nice guy. Believe his heart is in the right place. But I think the idea that we are spinning these things, I get you don't want doom and gloom. I get that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you say no one drinks beer anymore, so then people don't go out and drink beer, or they do these other things. But these companies that are doing smart, and I we've pushed too far into THC. I think that's not the direction to go. But these ones that are becoming beverage brands, right? What Monster is doing with a lot of these, getting into hard sodas or alternative, getting into the malt based ready to drink cocktail space, like not just so focused on beer or beer and THC or beer and THC and seltzer and calling those three good. um, Getting into more of the diverse space as being beverage companies, not beer companies, is important to do, but to do it through spinning numbers and making a statement as sure as this 0.1% growth in market share was due to consumer demand for independent. They didn't. That was an unequivocal statement in the press release. And to me, that is the biggest shell game that we have been playing with these numbers for years, and it betrays a bigger problem within the industry.
I can't remember when Tilray acquired like that big assortment of AB brands. Like they got Shock Top, like which
Yeah.
immediately
really weird
would
one to
move a
me.
needle. Like even if Shock Top's down, that's going to move a craft needle when it becomes craft. Like 10 Barrel, Breckenridge, Blue Point, like they
Red
got a whole
Hook,
bunch of,
Widmer, yeah.
yeah, they got a ton of brands, and I don't remember if that was maybe 24, 25 at the latest, but like Tilray got Brewdog, and
Yeah.
now they're just brand collecting. But yeah, you're right. These are such artificial growth numbers just based off of acquisitions and consolidations
Well, what you
that cross a border, just this invisible line that
what-
that we say you can't cross and be called one thing or another.
just jumping back and forth between that line, right? I think what the important thing is, what both of you guys have said over the last 5-10 minutes is 100% true, and I feel the exact same way. I do think it's important to put it in perspective that I think the dairy industry does the same thing, and I think the beef industry does the same thing, and I think the farming industries for corn and soybeans and things are the same. They're always trying to manifest a market by putting out the best possible face. In some ways, I mean, listen, what do we see more than anything with the Trump administration? Just lie and say things, and a certain amount of people are just going to believe you, right? And if you can, by doing that, trick a few people into thinking this thing is working, and once again, I'm not trying to be that nefarious or thinking that they're being that nefarious. I think they're cherry picking data that puts a good face on so that people don't start abandoning the industry from within, and that people maybe on the outside go, oh, well, this craft beer thing is taken off again, or whatever it is, if you see enough stuff on Facebook or Instagram. So I can't blame them for that, but it does feel really dishonest, and I don't like it. And I also think that what those kind of things will do is maybe unfairly or bringing more people potentially into the fold. If you see numbers, if you're investing in a business and this, that, and the other, and the industry is down and it's nothing but doom and gloom, and then you see like these little rays of light, and someone's like, "Oh, I am going to open that brewery." I kind of feel more bad about the people getting into it, thinking that they saw some numbers, that numbers are up, and then they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that everything was down."
1,000%, and this is what I've been saying for years, is as they've been doing this for years, is they've been giving a false sense about the projection of the industry.
Yeah.
There was that post I sent you, Mike, about the guy who was measuring the growth rate of his infant, and said, by the time he's 30, he's going to be 8 feet tall and 500 pounds, because we tend to just want to think of everything going in a completely linear pattern. We don't realize that everything asymptotes at a certain level. But I think aside from the fact that, and yes, you are right, the beef industry and the dairy industry and these other industries do this. And maybe even worse so when it comes to spin. But what I do see in beef and dairy and some of these others is, and I'm not saying the Brewers Association does not provide resources. They have educational resources now. CBC's been having the same courses. I looked at the website. I didn't see anything that blew my skirt up that looked like it was brand new out of any other CBC I've been to. A side note, I was talking with Joel about this. The only people that in my circle that I've seen at CBC this year work for vendors. I haven't seen a single brewer. But I think, they put out the draft quality manual. Great. Most people aren't even looking at that. I wish that the trade industry associate, like for the brewers industry, and I'm sure they work on lobbying with the government and all these things, but I wish they were driving more excellence within their industry like beef and dairy does. I'll give you a perfect example. It used to be the head brewer of Badger Hill down the road from RAR BSG, one of the largest maltsters in the world, right? Before they got their test facility, they actually ran some tests through our facility. They actually used us to do some tests. So I got to know them really, really well. I toured their facility. You know how I knew they got good malt? Because I knew Budweiser was sending a PhD scientist there. I knew Miller was sending a PhD scientist there. Wouldn't it be great if the Brewers Association had a PhD scientist that they could go and they could advocate on behalf of these small ones, so we don't have to just rely on Budweiser? The reason I never shat on Budweiser is because I knew that the only reason I got good malt was because Budweiser was holding them accountable, not me. I didn't have the knowledge or resources. But the dairy industry and the beef industry employ scientists. I'd like to see more scientists employed by the Brewers Association. And you can say, oh, they can't do it. They can't do it. They can't do it. Well, if you look at the top 50 brewery list that they listed, not the top 50 craft, there's a good overlap between the top 50 craft and the top 50 non-craft, that overlap. There are resources out there. I do think you can actually do that. I mean, they're already using, if you look at the draft quality manual, half of the authors are from non-craft breweries. Like, they are doing that. I'd like, and you know what the beef and the dairy industries aren't doing? They're using the large producers. They're not fighting them. They're not trying to tell a story like it's us versus them. And I think that is one of the ways where I feel like that's what makes it even more deceptive and more challenging, is that you're continuing to push an adversarial rather than partnership, right? Yingling, largest craft brewers brewery by their definition. Yingling has a joint venture with Molson Coors. If you're dependent on a joint venture with Molson Coors, you're definitely not independent. You can't be dependent and independent at the same time. That's just how words work. B, it's actually utilizing those resources. Why don't we utilize them more rather than trying to paint a picture like it's us versus them still? That to me is one of the biggest disservices that so maybe they don't employ the scientists, but they take more advantage of Budweiser's PhD scientists, whatever it is. To me, by pitting that's where you don't see in dairy is there's not one dairy association that is trying to fight big dairy, right? Like, the way that they lobby and they tell these stories is to do it largely together.
Well, I took a lot away from what you just said, Tim. And I think the most important thing is that if you've been adhering to a strategy for 20 or so years, mm-hmm. and it hasn't worked, the idea of us versus them and changing the world and making everyone drink quote unquote better beer, whatever someone thinks that better beer is, has not worked. Yes, there are success stories. There are areas of the country where the craft sales are far outweigh that in Florida, right? It's not that it's never worked or there hasn't been gains, but overall, we've at the best case scenario, we have plateaued. And more realistic scenario is that we have taken a huge step back from the peak of when craft was doing really, really well. And the idea that we can just keep butting our head up against that brick wall and saying that we're going to fight against the big guys and they're evil and we're better in every way, shape, and form, that's just unrealistic. And it has been rejected by the vast majority of consumers of beer. Period. It's just been rejected. They do not agree. And you've already converted all the people you were going to convert now, and the next generation, newsflash, is not drinking as much, period. So you're going to have a harder and harder time convincing them because they're not even engaging in the space. So at some point, someone has to have some real strategy ideas of how are we going to do this. And if the BA is supposed to represent us and we're paying dues to them and we're supposed to get something out of that, I mean, all we do is we just throw our dues in, Florida Brewers Guild, Craft Brewers Guild. Here's a check. It's not much. It really isn't. It's not going to hurt us to pay it, but there's no benefit to us.
Yeah.
In what way does it ever benefit us? If I could pay twice as much, and there was some kind of continuing education program, but there was some kind of advocacy that was going state by state to do something that supporting the Florida Brewers Guild doing X, Y, and Z in the state Senate. I don't have the answers for it, but at some, very recently in the last couple of years, I stopped being part of the Boca Chamber of Commerce. Okay. And I stopped it because I got sick of my partners going, we got to be part of the chamber. It's like, okay, I cut this check and we go to one beer fest or one event and that was it. And I realized, there's just a waste of money. So we were in multiple chambers of commerce and it saved me $1,500 a year. At what point do I go, well, I'm going to stop being part of the Florida Brewers Guild and the BA because I can save $1,500 a year?
Yeah, I mean they've become like HOAs, right? Like HOAs once upon a time were like, oh, I paid because they do all this upkeep around this community, but like now 90% of HOAs fund nothing. Maybe they landscape around a sign at the front of the community, and that's about it. Like most of that is just money that goes to just existing as an HOA, not really doing anything else, right? And that's what it feels like with the BA is. And again, they do provide educational resources, but CBC isn't cheap to go to, right?
No, it's not like you're getting that shit for free.
Yeah. Sure, you're getting discounted tickets. But it's still, and so it's like, just because you're providing these things, I guess I don't see that you've necessarily gotten, like you said, the return on investment. The just like you said, like doing the same thing and it not working seems kind of silly. I think the struggle with craft beer is it prided itself on being esoteric and unique and different, and the problem is you needed to be able to sell the everyman consumer while still you needed to sell both the in crowd and the out crowd, and you can't do both, right? You can't be niche and mainstream at the same time, and that's what craft beer found itself up against. Is we want to be niche, but we want to be able to have mainstream success by being niche.
It's a hard proposition.
It really is, yeah.
How many other businesses have done that? I mean, how many, massive, or not massive, but like local cheese makers have gone from being the artisanal guys that service just the high-end restaurants to being in every single grocery store and being wildly successful. What made them unique and stand out made it so that they cannot exist on that commercial level. And more breweries are realizing that that's what the ceiling is for them.
Yeah. And
the ones that were doing it 10, 15, 20 years ago really, really successfully, that didn't fuck it up, that stayed with the market, that evolved, that did some new things, they're still the ones that are there.
Yeah.
And that says a lot.
And at some point, there are some things that just need scale to survive. There's a reason there aren't artisanal cell phones, right? Like there are some things that just need scale to even exist in the first place.
You know,
That was a great line, Tim. That was really good.
so I wanted to just point out something that you mentioned before, Tim, about like utilizing and working together with some of the big boys, like instead of calling them the enemy through like most of our careers we probably have. Like I remember Off Color did a collaboration with Miller High Life
Mhm.
like a few years ago. They brewed a beer together. Um, I was thinking of one while you were talking, and I was able to look it up. Like Green Bench does down in St. Pete, Florida, do a yearly lager fest, and they had Yingling there this year, and they invited them as a participant. And then Yingling, they have a Tampa facility, and they had all of the brewers who were in town come out to the facility and treated them like kings out there. And it was like, okay, here, like, yes, okay, they're by definition craft, but you said in our text chain not too long ago, they weren't 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like the BA wouldn't allow them to be in. But by all accounts, a lot of people think that they are a macro big brand.
Hmm.
So seeing them collaborating and working with smaller brewers and opening their doors and being like, "Hey, come on in," like I do think that the time is ripe for this, and coming in with some apologies and some open arms and being like, "Hey, you know what? We're in this together. We're all brewers. We're all breweries. Let's work together. Let's learn together. Let's yeah, the sales aren't going to do that. Like their sales team isn't going to fucking help you, but like marketing people might work with you a little bit. Brewers will certainly work with you. Like the amount of awesome people that I knew working at the Goose facility after purchase over there that were just amazing people and had wealths of knowledge to be able to pass along. And it's just, yeah,
Yeah. I
we
mean,
we need to stop treating them like total enemies. I know that there's a line in here somewhere and it's gray, and like we can wholly disagree with some of those big time chair people over there and strategies that are used in sales and whatnot, but there are some aspects of this where we can get better together.
yeah, and the BA has at times, brought in someone from like AB or whatever to speak at a CBC or thing like that. It has happened. Part of that hasn't been well received by the consumer or by the consumers of that product, the craft breweries themselves. And I wonder how much of that is the tail wagging the dog of the BA telling you they're the enemy. Now we're bringing the enemy in. Well, boo! Why did you bring in the enemy? Like, like I don't know where that is, and a lot of it is because you still have a lot of short-sighted idiots that it was so funny because Breckenridge got bought by AB, right? And they had a little whole like commercials they filmed making fun of Budweiser and Coors, like literally direct parodies of their commercials, like all of that, and they went
Yeah.
into it, right? Greg Cook famously said he would never sell, obviously, right? Marine Ogle is having a good time enjoying the continued crow that Greg has to eat. As she works on the anniversary of her book that was featured in Beer Wars, so look for her to be releasing that. That's really exciting. We should try to get her on the pod. That'd be fun. But uh, like when you've been telling people for 20 years that they're the enemy, now you want to bring them in. Like I said, to the Brewers Association credit, from time to time they have done that, and they do bring those guys in to work on things like the draft beer quality manual, which again I will say 3 billion times over, every brewer out there, get the DQM, read it, learn it. So many of you are still doing draft beer wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. And I'm not just talking beer lines. I'm talking service pressure. I'm talking your draft systems. Don't listen to your distributor. I had distributors who have told me I've set up hundreds of draft lines. I know what I'm doing. And I was like, then why did you put a 60-40 gas blend on something that should be a 70 or 100% direct draw? This is basic stuff. Learn this shit. Brewers that are carbing their beer to 1 and serving it at something that's not going to maintain that carbonation. I see it all over the place. Brewers, get the draft quality manual. People smarter than you are doing this, and yeah, you think you know this, but a lot of you are home brewers who were doing it wrong, and now you're professionals that are doing it wrong. Get the DQM, read it. That should be your Bible. Every brewer should have that thing ready and look at it often. And rant. But I think the BA has done a good job, but when you talk out of both sides of your mouth, it's hard to get that buy-in. So brewers need to embrace the big guys a little bit more, and that can be done by their trade industry association. To quit saying, look, consumers want independent and local and craft, when the numbers, you can't prove that with the numbers. But again, it was an unequivocal statement in that press release. That press release rubbed me the wrong way because of that alone. And like I said, just moving Stone back into the craft is going to have that other growth that's going to happen right away. Literally, that would make up the 0.1% of the market share. Just that volume alone. So we need to be more honest about this stuff.
100%. Like, what's funny to me is Anheuser-Busch is a member of the Brewers Association.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they take their money. They are allowed to be members.
Yeah.
But they're not craft.
Yeah.
They don't get to be inside of the definition that this body that took their money and made them members said, you're members of this, the Brewers Association, but you're not members of this over here, independent craft brewing.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah. And that's where the BA is talking out of both sides of the mouth. We represent all brewers. You know, Miller won did really well at the World Beer Cup like 2 years ago, right? Like, some of these bigger players have cleaned up and done really well at some of these things, and they do, and they utilize their resources, but they do it very selectively, while still, right? Like, Budweiser doesn't care. The BA is shit talking macro. They don't care. They're like, whatever.
Well, I mean, listen, if you still have a little bit of that punk rock in you, right, and you really believe you're going to take down macro beers, everything has shown you you're not going to. Right? Like the world has shown you that that's not possible, at least not in our lifetime. So what can you do? Listen, you don't have to love it, but you can look at strategies and say, well, would this strategy work on a micro scale, right? Mm-hmm. If we're looking at what these companies, the entire thesis of this podcast was about, becoming a beverage company, having multiple brands. Well, as a brewery that produces 4,000 barrels or 10,000 barrels, would it be better to spin off and have multiple different brands within your portfolio? Does that make you could that potentially make you more successful or less successful? Can you apply some of these principles that have been successful for these big brands to yourself? I don't know the answer to that, but if you are looking at what these people are doing and just saying, that's bad, it's bad for the business, it's this, that, and the other, you're never going to give yourself the opportunity to experiment in that space. And you're closing yourself off to what seems like effective strategies if we're looking at, in a plummeting market, who are the people that are still at the top? And Tim, you read off a list of places, a list of breweries, a list of consortiums of breweries that are doing well. Why are they doing it? Maybe by utilizing some tactics from the evil guys.
I mean, let's remember, recently signed at Abita, Mitch Steele, who most people really credit for making Stone what Stone is, started at Anheuser-Busch, right? Like, so many breweries like to compare to food, and they say Budweiser is the McDonald's of beer, and yada yada yada. I was like, the problem is that you think you're a Michelin star restaurant when you're just Joe's Sports Bar down the road. Like you've confused that what you're making is the superior, excellent meal. You know who like the big national and successful national chains employ? Well trained and well decorated chefs. They do, they're not like they're still getting that. They're just finding ways to do it efficiently and on scale. And maybe you don't want to make a McDonald's hamburger. Fine, you don't have to make Bush Light, but don't pretend like just because you're making a decent hamburger means that you're now suddenly uh, you know, like Gordon Ramsay, and you're able to do all of these great things when you're really just some dude who, like, I know you're not a sports bar. You intentionally don't put a TV in there. You don't show those things, but you act like it. You really do. From your beer production quality, like I went on a rant in the last episode about how the beer industry learns so much from the food production space. They could do the exact same thing from learning from the big guys.
Mike, I know you'll appreciate this. In our former brewery that we worked at together, I don't think there's ever been a better example of someone who thought they were, to use a contemporary reference, the bear, right? That's what they thought they were. Really a short order cook at a diner an independent diner on the side of the road, right? And that short order cook at the independent diner on the side of the road every now and then might make a burger better than McDonald's, but half the time it's, there's ashes in the on the hot dogs, right? Like, I mean,
you're not the bear, you're Bob's Burgers.
And yeah, but I mean, that is such a aware, and it so understands the mentality of that person who views themselves in a certain way, that the rest of the world sees you for who you are. Mm-hmm. And that is something I struggle with all the time. Like, I see what we're doing in such a positive light, and I have to remind myself that as many people that when we do walk in and we're, Barrel of Monks, a local brewery, blah, blah, we do get that cachet. So people do give us draft lines because we're the local brewery and blah, blah, blah. But we don't get that everywhere. We're still the apple cart on the side of the road to 99% of the places that we walk into. And if we don't come to terms with that and keep pretending like everyone sees us as these artisans that are bucking the system, we are going to do that while we close the doors, and then we get to tell stories for the next 40 years until we're dead about how, we were just a little ahead of our time. We made the best beer that's ever been created ever, and we just never had our fair shot. Everyone has that story, right?
Well, and what I always say too is, like, the smartest and best head brewer that anyone that you will ever hire would be an out of their depth shift brewer at an AB facility. Like literally, like the amount of I know some really smart people, but the smartest brewers I know that are doing like some complicated mash schedules. Andy Rulin, perfect example. Maybe one of the smartest brewers I know when it comes to so many things. But he knows, I wouldn't be able to hack it there. And part of that has to do with is, like, if you find that genius and that gem, they're not going to take craft beer money. You kidding me? You're not going to be able to pay them what they could make somewhere else. And part of that just has to do with just our belief that, the things we venerate and the things that we think are special within they're the biggest fish in the smallest pond type of mentality going on.
I love Andy's push for bloggers.
Yeah.
Just how much people think that loggers are so blah. I love him taking that to the extreme now. Kevin, I during all of this, I was just going through the Brewers Association's directory. You're one of like 2 or 3 local breweries who are actually members of the Brewers Association.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Almost no one around here are actually members of the Brewers Association anymore. And that includes my previous place, which I thought that we were.
Oh, really?
members. So the fact that we were not is crazy. Um, so maybe it's something to look at saving some money on.
If I told my partner Bill that I was going to not pay our BA dues, he would just pay it out of pocket. Like he just has this thing where it's so important. He fought for years because you have that independent beer label that you can rightfully put on your can, and I would just fight. I was like, this doesn't matter. It's just going to muddy the waters. We have limited real estate. It does not freaking matter. And eventually he got his wish. We put it right there. I don't think we've sold an extra can because of it, but it's there.
I was just thinking about that stupid upside down bottle because of how dumb that thing was, and I'd gotten into it with Scott Metzger at the time, because I was like, first of all, you're a
he was a board member for a while.
yeah, and he was one that was really pushing this, and I was like, what's really funny is right after you did this, so on the Craft Brewers website and the membership list, if you were truly independent, you got the upside down bottle by your name, and if you weren't, you didn't get it. And right after they rolled it out, I said to him, like, how did you guys determine this? And I'm like, you never asked us, and we have one by our name. How do you know that we're independent? How are you getting any of this stuff? And it turns out there was, I don't know, like a dozen breweries they had mislabeled, some that they didn't have that were independent, and some that weren't independent that they had given that to. And so it was just this arbitrary stamp in the I mean, the numbers are arbitrary. One of the former owners admitted that he didn't report accurate production numbers to the BA because there was no penalty against what it is, right? Like like you take that across
all the honor system.
Yeah, you take that across 1,000 breweries saying they're making 3,000 barrels last year and they only made 150, and no one knows.
It says certified right there, Tim. It says it. It says certified.
Certified by what? There's like zero way to look at this. It means nothing, and the fact that it's an upside down bottle, like Joel and I used to call it the drain pour logo.
It always was a terrible design, but I have a fun story about that logo because I've always hated it, and I pushed for a long time to start taking it off of our stuff at Copper Point, and I would here and there just leave it off of like a one-off label and just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna delete that off of there, not have that. And it's freeing to be able to have this type of conversation and talk about this because I don't work there anymore. But like I remember having multiple conversations with my boss and our sales manager about it, and my sales manager was very adamant about having it on there. And I'm like, do you think that we sell more because of it? No. I'm like, then why do we have it on there? It's so bad looking. It doesn't fit our brand. We could come up with a better design ourselves. Like I've seen other brands who do stuff similar to that. And it's awesome.
Stone, the bottle caps that Stone used to have that said the independent, that was a way better way of doing that. It told the same story. It was a way better way of doing that.
But so eventually we got to a point where we were printing cans for Bee Squeeze, like finally going to do a run of printed cans. And I was like, I don't want to have it on there. They wanted to have it on there. They eventually won. We sent the artwork into the print company at Arda, who doing the cans, and they come back to us and they go, so the Brewers Association have actually changed some restrictions on the usage of the logo. It has to be a certain size, a minimum amount of size, to be able to be used on a can, and this is not that. And I was like, this is crazy that you know that, and you're playing like cop to this, but this is also great because we can't fit the minimum
Yeah.
size for that within the space that we had it in before. So we just get to delete it. I'm like, this is great. We don't have to use it anymore because the Brewers Association decided it has to be so big on your can or your label to be able to use it. So we're like, all right, it's done. It's gone.
I notice here as I hold it up that the 12th largest craft brewer in the country doesn't put it on theirs.
That it must not be successful. That's not doing well because it doesn't have that logo on there. Tim, don't you understand?
I mean, one of the biggest problems with craft beer is, right. So here's what I'll say. I don't care if every single one of our listeners writes in angrily and tells us that they don't buy anything without that logo. First of all, bullshit. Second of all, I don't care. The biggest thing, craft beer nerds, anyone listening to a beer podcast, anyone going on Beer Advocate, anyone involved in the craft beer industry that is not like working in the industry, but who gets on forums or any of that bullshit, I don't care. Because you aren't the driver of my business. I say this all the time, right? 90% of people on the road have no idea what the size of the engine in their car is. They know that they press a button and it turns on and it goes vroom and they drive. You don't have to have this esoteric deep knowledge to enjoy beer. And so everyone who thinks that this little shit matters, it doesn't. And if it does, you're not making money because you're selling to the wrong people.
So let me try to speak normally. So Mike and I, from time to time, will have a conversation and we'll come up with what we think is like a great idea for like a thing that we could do in the industry or a thing that we could do for a podcast or whatever it is. Probably not as much recently because we both have parenting duties and we're not thinking creatively. But I would love to do a social experiment and go out to like very crafty craft beer bars in Florida and show the independent beer logo to everyone there and get reactions. What does this mean? Like, what does this logo mean to you? Mm-hmm. And you could like pull the words out of it. So you just see like the upside down bottle and just get deer in headlights. I have no fucking idea what that means. What are you talking about? I think it would be 99.9% of people. I don't think anyone could recognize what the hell that means. And it would be an incredible social experiment to see how this, if you care about this, you're putting your priorities in the wrong place.
One thing that highlights this more than anything to me, the reaction to the Stone news. The number of craft beer people themselves, people who work in the industry, that are talking about the Schadenfreude of Greg Cook and this sale. Greg Cook sold out 4 years ago. This already happened. And I'm not saying there's not a certain level of Schadenfreude because he talked about it specifically in the sale of Boulevard to Duvel. So there is a special thing in it. And I'm all here for Danner's pettiness on that one.
I was going to say, I was like, is this all about Danner?
No, it's not. But there's been a lot of other people I've seen on this. There was a forum I was reading where someone's like, how the mighty have fallen, or like, oh, another one bites the dust and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it already happened. You're in the industry, or you're an insider, or you're a beer nerd, and you're shocked by this sale. They already haven't been that for 4 years. This isn't new. The way that you react to it means you hear news like this, you move on, you forget about it. It means nothing, and you're an insider. You're an insider. Like I said, 90%. Like, it's like the house. Like, if there weren't taxes involved and my house changed counties 7 times and no one told me, I wouldn't know. I'm sure, like, there are a billion things. I might be in a different township, or they might have redrawn my neighborhood, or they might have whatever. If it doesn't affect me, I don't know. And as a consumer of Stone, it doesn't affect me who owns them. It just doesn't. Or whether they're craft or not, or whether they get an upside down bottle logo on their artwork or not. It doesn't affect me. And even if I say it does, it doesn't. Right? there are probably people that bought something because it had the upside down logo 5 years ago, and they've taken that upside down logo off the can, and they've never bothered to recheck if that was on there. So even the ones that say they cared probably still don't care. Like, there are ways for us to do that. What I want to do is I want to make my own stamp of certified craft beer and start selling that to breweries and giving them a $5. You get the sticker you get to put on your front door that you're a certified craft brewery, and see if I can't make a couple $100 selling people a sticker that cost me 5 cents to make that says absolute bullshit, but it looks official.
That's something you should do, Kevin, too, with what you were talking about, is have 3 different versions. The real version, I'll design one and Tim will design one and hold them up and go, which one do you believe is the real one?
Yeah. We can't hear you, Kevin. I don't.
Sorry, yeah, I pulled a mic and had my my mute on there. No, I think that's a great idea. I thought you were going with this, Tim, as you were going to say, I'm going to design my own logo. I'm going to license it to people, but I'm actually going to go to their brewery and I'm going to say, do your cans explode? Well, then you're not certified, right? I'm going to certify good beer that is not fucked up because I put independent craft on this can that's bleeding out of all it seems. So that's not a good thing. Does that breed confidence in the market when that happens? Well, it's an independent craft. It's right here. It's certified.
You guys have sexist marketing or marketing that says that excessive drinking is a good thing. Like, you're not part of the certification process either.
But once again, the certification is you make a certain amount of barrels, which you just can lie about, as Tim just mentioned. But for a consumer, they see certified, they think, oh, there's someone there. There's a guy with a clipboard and maybe like a hairnet. And like a beard guard thing, and they're walking through and they're tapping on large conical vessels, and they're, this is a good one. And no, this one's not as good. No, this one's not good. Don't use this one. That's what people, I believe, if anyone does look at that, that's what they're probably thinking.
Yeah, the idea that any of the, I mean, hell, I know things that we passed inspection on at Badger Hill that other breweries failed on. Like, there's not even consistency on the things that are actually inspected to know how these things that don't require any inspection and get to be called certified seems extra silly. And again, that is another thing that your membership dues at the BA paid for. That logo wasn't designed for free. All those assets weren't created for free.
Mm-hmm.
Your membership dues paid for that. Again, one more way that I feel, and I they've since backed off on pushing that campaign, and it's not as big of a deal. But do you remember when that thing launched? They put a lot of effort behind that, and I was like, "This is what our dues are going to. This is what's going to make craft win." Like, what are you doing to make sure people don't have exploding cans? What are you doing to actually make sure that there is quality? What are you doing to I don't know. The whole thing is silly. I don't even have a bow to put on that comment.
Is there anything else that we want to talk about in regards to the Firestone thing?
I just want to say yet another episode where we are beacons of positivity. We are champions of industry, and we find no faults anywhere at all. That is what we claim as the mission statement of this podcast.
I would literally argue that we were champions of industry because we were championing better choices by our industry trade association.
We actually got called out for our negativity on our last episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For anything in particular, or just in general?
That we're right, but we're negative.
Okay, you know what? I'll take that as a insult, I guess.
So, yeah, I'm gonna be like, Okay.
So-
I didn't even respond.
So what?
Maybe we're just trying to counteract the bullshit optimism that says that craft beer is growing because market share went up 0.1%.
Bullshit optimism has always been bullshit to me. I fucking hate it.
No. So the alternative is be wrong and be positive, right? Like we have to just flip the script
true.
completely. Like you're right, but stop being so negative here. I get it. I get it. Listen, for a long time, I have kind of avoided some of my normal like media outlets and podcasts and things of that nature, especially since the most recent Trump administration. And I've now been going back and like finally consuming some of this because I'm like in a mental space where I can like handle it. And yeah, it's all negative because that's the reality. Right? Don't trust people who are putting positive spins on everything because they're not being realistic.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about the good side of war, though.
What is it good for? Absolutely.
Yeah, would someone advocate for nothing? It's good for nothing. Let's let nothing have its due.
Good God. You all. No, it's y'all. Okay.
I would pay good money to see you perform James Brown at karaoke. I think we should make that a mandate in June when we hopefully all get together.
No cameras allowed. So let's head into last calls, the point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related or not. The only rules are that it is uninterrupted, unopposed, unobjected. For today, I'm going to start things off because I know in previous last calls, I have talked about baseball and how much I was happy that baseball is back. I fucking hate baseball right now because the Phillies fucking suck. But the thing is, a lot of teams fucking suck right now. And there's teams that are good who were not expected to be good. That makes baseball kind of fun too. It's a weird experience that I'm having with baseball, but you know, I'm in love with my Philadelphia Flyers right now. While we recorded this, we just went 3 games up on our series against the Penguins, our fucking bitter rivals, and I am stoked for this team. 2 months ago, I was like, why are we not tanking so that we can get a better draft pick? And we are now in the playoffs and are probably one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. And ain't nothing in the world like playoff hockey. And I'm enjoying it. I don't know what the world of hockey is going to be like when this comes out, but I'm at least a happy Flyers fan and not thinking about the Phillies at all at this point in time. When the Flyers are out, that'll be a different thing, but we'll deal with that when that comes around. Kevin?
You know, I think I've been talking about like kind of heavy subjects and emotional subjects for like a solid 2 or 3 months of these shows. So I want to kick it back to when I talked about television shows every now and then. And I want to talk about the Scrubs reboot. I was a massive fan of Scrubs when it came out. Now, there are parts of Scrubs when I go back and watch it, and I kind of, as a 45-year-old man, look back and go, oh, Dr. Cox was just an asshole. Like, yeah, he had like a heart of gold, but he was just mean and nasty and shouldn't have been, talked to or dealt with after like the first year of the show because he was just awful. So there are parts of the old show that I have some mixed feelings on. I rejected the idea of watching the reboot because I just thought it's going to be a reboot. It's going to suck. It's not going to have any purpose. It's just going to be rehashing all the same old jokes. Every reboot sucks. I rejected it, wouldn't watch it. My wife wanted to watch it. No, let's watch something else. Finally, she's like, I really want to watch this Scrubs reboot. I said, okay. We sat down, we watched the first episode. I sat there, it ended, and I looked at my wife, and I have notes on pretty much every show I ever watch. I always have some opinion, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, whether I have any right to have an opinion or not. And I looked at her and said, I have no fucking notes. It was perfect. That was a perfect reboot. Emotionally, comically, everything about it hit. The season has now ended, and I have no notes. It was just amazing. They fixed, if you want to put it that way, some of the issues with some of the nastiness and some of just the mean-spirited nature of some of the characters. It's just really, really good. It has a great emotional center. All the new cast is really good. That never happens. The entire new cast, I actually want to see what happens with them. The old cast, they put them in new situations where you're going to like actually want to see how they grow and develop within them. I was blown away. So, if you're like me and you loved the show when it first came out and thought that the ending was perfect and there's no reason to ever come back to it, and you were avoiding it, go check it out. And maybe you'll think I'm wrong, but it was really, really good. And I am so excited to see another season of it.
Interesting. Tim?
I really don't have a lot this week. I feel like some of my last calls have come across as excessively preachy. What I really want to just say is, man, I made a really good sandwich the other day, and I'm in love with sandwiches lately. I've been doing this, and I just keep on repeating it, but it's just sliced steak, grilled peppers and onions, American cheese on grilled Texas toast with a fried egg. And oh my God, it's been one of the best things that I've made it like 3 or 4 times. I've been messing around with different types of hot ham and cheese, and then like actually putting like lettuce and tomato on there. I've been messing around with like raspberry jelly and turkey. I have not figured out what my club sandwich recipe is yet, but I tell you what, sandwiches, man. When you talk all time about the greatest inventions by man, like the wheel, the light bulb, the printing press, sandwich has to be up there. And I don't care if you want to include, hot dog or taco or quesadilla or whatever. If you want to include those, that's fine. I won't argue with that. But just 2 slices of bread, filling. Hell, dude, I made a peanut butter and jelly, and I sprinkled a little bit of hot cocoa mix in between the peanut butter and jelly the other day, and I have to tell you, it was bomb. I made a thing with chili oil and bacon the other day on a ham and cheese, and it was bomb. Like, I'm telling you, just the idea that you have this perfect handheld vessel to be able to just. Here's what I'll get preachy. People complain, oh, low class civilizations eat with their hands. You ever eat a fucking sandwich with a knife and fork? If you do, you're a monster. Unless it's open face, which is not a sandwich. But yeah, a taco is a sandwich before an open face sandwich is a sandwich. Maybe that's my hot take. This is my preachy moment. But man, give it up for sandwiches. That's my last call.
Can we get something in the United We Drink store, a bumper sticker that says, I've been really into sandwiches lately? Can we get that? Because
we got to collab with Jonathan Surratt, a beer nader.
Yeah.
He's got a whole blog on sandwiches.
I've been really into sandwiches lately.
I sometimes the stuff he posts I think should be labeled not safe for work. I gotta tell you, everything that he posts is phenomenal, and I know he's not a full-time sandwich influencer, but boy, I would like to be a full-time sandwich influencer because
this is not my last call. I've already done it, but my hot take is all these people who are taking like 37 ingredients and putting on top of a burger, I think they just want a sandwich with those ingredients. And if they got rid of the frickin' burger, it would be great. Yeah. They're like, we're going to put burrata and pistachios and this, that, and then we're going to put it on top of a burger. Why? You can't even eat that. But if you just put those ingredients between 2 pieces of bread and toasted that motherfucker, it would be delicious. Not everything needs ground goddamn beef.
I'll plug Bounded by Buns. That's Jonathan's website where he just has a ton of sandwich content. It's amazing. I've spent way too much time on that site before, just looking up what I can make with certain ingredients. But yeah, okay, we're becoming a sandwich podcast now. So the first time that we do video, we decide we're changing course after this.
Okay, we pool our money. We buy the Earl of Sandwich franchise, and we blow that motherfucker out. Okay, now we keep the turkey, whatever.
Wimpy too, with like $5 more.
Well, the Earl of Sandwich is good because it's in every just random gas station. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Earl of Sandwich is awesome because it doesn't make any sense, and you only get it when you're on a road trip. There's something beautiful about that.
No, I like this. United We Deli. I think this is perfect.
Don't even have to change the initials, so we got it.
I told Joel the other day, Mike, you're out of the industry. I'm out of the industry. I was like, Kevin's going to school. When he leaves, it's just going to be United We Drank.
Or it'll be United We Drink, but why? For other reasons.
Yeah. 'Cause we're dads.
Does anyone want to plug anything?
I got nothing.
Sandwiches. I'll go ahead and plug Bounded by Buns. Yeah.
Have a sandwich. That's my plug.
Yeah.
Have a
Just go
sandwich.
have a sandwich. When's the last time your mother wants to make you a sandwich? Just go talk to your mom.
Go
and
get
eat a sandwich.
Oh, man, ham and cheese and apple. Oh. Get
Is
after
it brie?
folks.
The
Brie absolutely is the best way to go, but you can't go wrong with a lot.
the
Fucking American cheese and a green apple is still fucking bomb.
the passion in Tim's voice right now. I have not heard him talk about beer with that tone in a couple years now. I mean, it resonates with you.
Yeah, I know, and they don't even have to be local independent craft sandwiches.
Now, what if we come up with the local independent craft sandwich logo and you get one of those irons and you burn it on top of the sandwich?
It's just an upside down sandwich.
Which is just a sandwich. It works perfectly.
This sandwich works both ways. Oh, I've just been informed that Subway has been bought by an independent sandwich shop. They are now independent. They are no longer Big Sandwich.
Nice. Perfect. I love it. Well, guys, enjoy. Now that Firestone Walker is in charge of Keystone Light, as I understand it, I'm sure they're gonna do wonders with that brand. So, Mike, take us out. This is dumb.
Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. If you're watching this, I don't know why, but thanks. And we encourage you to go over to our website, unitedwedrink.com, and check out the Brands We Love page, where if you purchase something through those links, we get a little kickback. It's something called affiliates. We also have a web store, unitedwedrink.com/store, that has some very outdated but still buyable merchandise. And then other than that, we'll be back in a couple weeks with another new episode that you may or may not like, but you'll be here because you agree with us, but we're negative. So on that, we'll be back. We'll see you then. Cheers.
Cheers.
Enjoy every sandwich.